Hello, ladies and gents. Robert Sykes, KetoSavage.com, and welcome to episode 2 of the A.M.A. Ask Me Anything. Today's question is brought to us by none other than Jody, and she asks, "Greetings, Robert and Crystal. I have experienced very good weight loss success with keto and fasting." Congrats, Jody. "I am at a point that I fear I may be fasting too much and may have lowered my BMR. I have heard you recommend keto refeeds and also reverse diets. Can you please explain the difference?" All right, so first of all, thank you very much for the question, Jody. I've got some chocolate malt keto bricks headed your way. Great question. So, congrats on the success you've seen so far. Fasting is interesting subject matter. Fasting is incredibly popular right now. Intermittent fasting, extended fasting, it's kind of like a hype, so to speak. Not that it's an unnecessary hype. There's a lot of benefits that come from fasting. So some buzzwords you've probably heard is, cell autophagy, cell turnover, programmed cell death, which is apoptosis. Basically, this is what is killing the old unhealthy cells in your body and allowing the growth of new, healthy, vibrant cells, which is all a very good thing. However, there is always a other side of the spectrum, and the same is true with regard to fasting. So you said that you fear that you may have slowed down your BMR. For those of you that do not know, BMR stands for basal metabolic rate. So, little rewind here. Basal metabolic rate, that's your basic metabolism at rest. So, if you were in a coma, how much energy would you have to consume in order to basically keep the lights on? All right, so this is not including your NEAT activity, your non-exercise activity thermogenesis. This is not including your exercise, calories burned through exercise. This is not counting the thermic effect of food. This is just your basal metabolic rate, your functioning baseline metabolism. And you fear that you may have downregulated that as a result of too much extended fasting. And it's very possible that you have. So your body is smart. All of our bodies are smart. Okay, we've evolved over the past several 100,000 years to survive when things are scarce, when food is scarce. So when you become keto adapted, when you become fat adapted, and you're able to just tap into your stored body fat for fuel, you can survive in the absence of calories and in the absence of food for a short period of time. Actually, for a fairly long period of time, several days, several weeks, even months. Some people have gone even a year without eating any food, and they have survived. However, when you're fasting far too often for far too long, you run the risk of down-regulating your basal metabolic rate. Because our bodies are smart and have evolved to survive, that is our primary focus, to survive. So if food is scarce and there's not enough energy coming into our systems, our bodies are going to respond by down-regulating our metabolism so that we do survive, we don't die. Like if we're functioning at an incredibly high metabolic rate and say our maintenance is 4,000 calories, just for example here, if you all of a sudden shut down that intake, that food, you start fasting, you do an extended fast, then your body is not going to want to expel 4,000 calories worth of fuel for that high functioning metabolism. It's going to down-regulate that metabolism. You'll see a decrease in NEAT activity. You'll see a decrease for your desire to get up and move and fidget and just expend energy. And the same is true with your basal metabolic rate. Your body will slow down its demands and things will start shutting down, for lack of a better word. Like when I'm in a very low deficit and I'm seeing a downregulation of my metabolism, like your fingernails stop growing, your hair stops growing. I mean, things just slow down because anything that is not key to your, survival, it's just an unnecessary expenditure that your body just basically turns the switch off on until calories come back in. So if you're doing a whole lot of extended fasting, you can very easily downregulate that metabolism far too often and unnecessarily. So a good rule of thumb with fasting, there's not really a perfect fasting protocol. I personally do intermittent fasting, so a very short-term fast every single day in the sense that I have, several hours between my meal frequencies where I'm not eating, and that's totally fine. That's totally sustainable. It's not going to downregulate your metabolism whatsoever. Where you start getting into murky waters is when you go, several days without food, especially if you're in the context of already being in a caloric deficit. So I personally only recommend fasting when you're at a caloric maintenance or in a caloric surplus. When I'm doing a competition prep or when I'm trying to cut and lose body fat and my calories are down below maintenance, I never do an extended fast. extended fasting is great. You can have that cell turnover, you can have that autophagy, but it is still a stressor on the body. You don't want to have too many stressors on the body all at once. So if you're already in a caloric deficit, which is a stressor on the body, the last thing you want to do is introduce another stressor in the form of an extended fast. You also asked about keto refeeds and reverse dieting. Reverse dieting is basically just the reverse of dieting. So typically when you're talking about dieting, you're talking about being in a caloric deficit and trying to strip away calories to lose body fat. Reverse dieting is basically increasing calories to get above your maintenance intake and kind of prime your body and put you in a state where you can better focus on building lean muscle tissue, repairing that metabolism, actually ramping that metabolism up. It's got an inverse effect. So if you're downregulating your metabolism by eating far too little for far too long, you could also upregulate your metabolism by increasing your caloric intake. When I start ramping up my calories considerably, I'll notice my whole body starts to get hot. It's like you're feeding the furnace with more fuel, and basically that's what you're doing with the food, the energy, the calories that you're consuming when you eat a meal. If you're eating a caloric surplus, you'll feel more warm, you'll feel you have better recovery. There is a point of diminishing returns. You don't want to just go crazy high on the calories, but you'll notice that you've got more fuel to work with, more energy to work with, and you can get more work done in the sense of like training and exercise. Your NEAT activity will ramp up. You'll start fidgeting a lot more. You'll start singing and skipping and all kinds of crazy stuff. With regard to ketogenic refeeds, that's basically a strategic increase in calories, and you can do them in the context of a caloric deficit. You can even do them in the context of a caloric surplus, but they're less necessary if you're in a caloric surplus. So I typically recommend introducing a ketogenic caloric refeed when calories are low to kind of postpone the downregulation of your metabolism and also just to make it more sustainable. So if you're eating very little at the end of a cut and you're just hungry, your metabolism is starting to downregulate, you can introduce a 30 to 40% increase in calories for 1 or 2 days consecutively, and that's going to act as a ketogenic caloric refeed and kind of help shunt that process of the downregulation of your metabolism. So you don't want to do that too soon. I typically recommend doing that during the last phase of a cut, but it is a very helpful tool in the context of improving your metabolism while in a caloric deficit. So that's kind of a quick overview on the reverse dieting and the keto caloric refeeds. That'd be a whole other video entirely. I can go super deep into those. But with regard to the fasting, I just really want to throw this out there because I see so many people doing these extended fasts, and they're always doing it in the context of already being in a caloric deficit. And so that's honestly the worst thing you can do. Fasting can be a very great, powerful tool, but you have to do it in the right environment, the right foundation. And if you're chronically under-eating and down-regulating your metabolism, doing an extended fast, especially frequently, is the worst thing you can do. You're basically taking one step forward in the sense that you're having that cell turnover and apoptosis, but you're taking 3 steps back because you're shunting your metabolic rate, and that's the last thing you want to do when your priority is losing body fat and building lean tissue. So there's that. Jody, thanks again for the question. If anybody wants to submit a question, I'll put a link in the bottom of this description, and you can submit a question. If I use your question and answer it on the A.M.A, I'll send you some free keto bricks. Thanks again, Jody. You'll have a wonderful day, and take care.